start with, tell us something about your father and Mr. Should I say Mr. Ba Jivanra?
He was my grandfather.
He was your grandfather. If you can tell us a little bit about. Yes. If you can tell us a little bit about him and how he was instrumental, or how he was part of the development of Shillong, the establishment.
Yes, originally we were from Sohra, Cherrapunji, and my grandfather also was from Cherra, from what we call the locality Shillong in Sohra. And then he joined the government service at that time. He joined government service in 1858. And then he was in the government service, and when they had, at that time, Sohra was the headquarters of the British. I mean, in 1958, the Crown had just taken over the government from the East India Company. And so the headquarters was in Cherra. And then later, when they want to expand, to extend the administration in this northeastern region, and especially when the British wanted to, there was a conflict with the Burmese, and so they were looking for a more central place. And then also Cherrapunji, as you know, is a very heavy rainfall there. And so they thought that it's better to look for a place which will be less rainfall and will be central, which is central both the South Bengal, central with the Assam Valley, central with all these other places where they are having a conflict with the other neighboring places. So when they shifted the headquarters here, my grandfather also was, as a government servant, he came here. Since that time, we have settled down here in Shillong. And he was very much connected with the site, the planning of the sites also here, because they took his in confidence also for the planning and all this. We had some maps also, but that also, I think now is very difficult to show you at the moment. And so he was very much involved in that. And then, the Shillong was very well planned. And it was not, of course, when it first shifted here also, as you know, population was very small then. And later on, when it became the capital of Assam, and Assam in those days means comprised the whole of these regions. That means within Assam we had the Sylhet district also was in Assam, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, all these places were under Assam. And so Shillong was made the capital of Assam because of its climate, and it suits the Britishers at the time because it's very, the climate is suitable to them.
And then after your grandfather, your father also joined the...
Yes, my father also was he joined the government service, but he died very early. When I was very young also he died. But my uncles were, because we are matrilineal, so actually my uncles look after everything. And then the earthquake, we had a great earthquake in 1897. And so all the houses here also collapsed. And then after that it was rebuilt again. And then I belong, as Khasis, you see, we belong to the matrilineal society. And so actually my uncles look after everything. And so when my father died, also my uncles, they look after us. And they look after our education. And then my eldest uncle, Charan Roy, he joined the government service as a sub-inspector of police. And he was the first Khasi who, and then my grandfather was very wanted to develop, wanted to have the Khasis good education, because in those days the missionaries have started some schools, but they didn't start it to really to give education to the Khasis, but just for them to know a little reading of this Bible and all these things, because it is connected with the conversion and all. And then those who could afford used to send the children to the Sylhet district for education. So my grandfather's father also was educated in Sylhet district, and then later on he was educated in Srirampur. But my grandfather didn't have a chance to go to school. His father educated him. And maybe he felt that education is very important. And he himself, of course, he studied himself like that, and then he joined as a writer, and then when he retired as second-class magistrate. He was a self-educated man like that. And maybe he always feel that education is very important, and so he started and then he approached the missionaries to start, to develop, to proceed the school up to the entrance standard. But they refused. And so ultimately he started it himself, the high school in Shillong. There in the now near Raj Bhavan, in that telegraph office, there he started. And together with some of these government employees in the government, most of them were Bengalis, so they started the entrance school, the high school for boys only. And then in 18 I think 1878, no? 1878, eh? I passed my entrance 1878. I've forgotten maybe 1878 or 76. He passed. My eldest uncle passed the entrance from that school. And then all the children from the missionary school started to go to the school. And so the missionary approached the government that to give them grants so that they could start the entrance school. And then my grandfather, when they approached him, he said, it doesn't matter whoever started the school, because once they get the education is good enough. And so and then the government decided to take over the school, but on condition that the head will always be from the Welsh mission priest. And that's how, and then he developed education that way. And then my eldest uncle joined this as sub-inspector of police. And then when he was posted to Joai, Danger Hills, and Danger Hills was a conquered territory, and Khasi Hills it was not a conquered territory, it was under treaty. And so in Danger Hills they had to pay the taxes, the land revenue, everything else is done in the plain areas. And the people were very poor, most of them were just farmers, agriculturists like that. And then sometimes he had to go with the revenue collector to collect this land revenue and all. And the people were so poor they could not pay. And then they used to take away, utensils, everything, whatever is there, they used to take away to pay again the taxes. And he couldn't stand that, and then he used to pay from his own pocket. And so ultimately he said, I can't stand this, so he left the government job. And so throughout his life, he always fought for the freedom of the people. And he was very much in touch with the Congress at the time, and then with, and he was a great admirer of Mahatma Gandhi also. And then he published a paper, and then through the paper also he wrote about all this, what happened in India, you know, how they struggled for independence and all. And he highlighted all these things as part to create the awareness to the Khasi people, what was going on all over India and what is happening in India, how the people are suffering and how they are fighting for all this freedom and all. So he was like that.
Tell us about yourself. You said.
And then Shillong also was very, I mean, I can't imagine, you know, Shillong was just like a picture in those days. Very clean, well planned, and not crowded also. And of course, we as Khasi, we didn't feel the brunt of the administration of the British, because Khasi Hills was not a conquered territory, and so we didn't have to pay all this land revenue, and all also was not there. And then we are free, more or less free like that. So it was a very nice place. It's not crowded as it is now. You see, very well planned. All the streams were very clean. Even the stream here near our house also was very clean, but now it's very dirty. And all the stream in Polo Ground and also were very clean. And the marketplace also now, you haven't been to the market, have been? It's now, if you go inside, it's not, I'm sorry to say, it's not very clean. But in olden days it was very clean. And it was not crowded also.
You were telling me that you were born and brought up in this house.
Mm.
Can you tell us a little bit about the house? And you can also repeat those words again on camera, that you were born and brought up in this house. Who built this house? And what was the view from here?
Mm. This house, it was built by my grandfather. But then during the earthquake it collapsed. And it had to be quickly rebuilt also, because my grandmother doesn't want to stay anywhere else, stays outside. And then my eldest uncle, he didn't want to, as I told you, he didn't want to be in the government service. And after he resigned, he went to one village to cultivate. But then he got malaria and all, and then he came back very sick, and then my grandfather didn't allow him to go back. And so he took lease of this limestone quarries. And the government also gave him, because he was an ex-government servant. But in those days, there is one Henry Inglis who monopolized all this limestone in the border area, right through, from Mizoram, Khasi Hills to Garo Hills, I mean, all over Assam. And then the government, on time, had already passed an order that no more license to be given to him, should be given to the natives. In those days they call natives for the Indians. Huh? But somehow Benami will go and force them, because he was very powerful. He was a very powerful trader. And so most of them, they had to give in. And so when my grandfather also got the lease, he came to him also. He said, why do you want, you give it to me, I'll just give it like that. But my grandfather said, no, because I have taken this lease especially for my sons to work. But then when he went back, he lowered down the price. And then my grandfather was a government servant, so he didn't have money, to do all these things. So he used to take loan from the business people. even to build the houses and also she took loan from the business people, and then to do the work in the quarries also she took loan from the business people. And as you know, we take loan, that means the what do you call it, the interest also was very high in those days. And then after sometimes he came again. But again my grandfather refused. He went down, he lowered down the price. Until a time came, I think he lowered it so much. I forgot, I think he lowered up to 4 rupees or 6 rupees a ton, like that. And then he told my grandfather, he said, look, how will you fight against me? I am very powerful. And then my grandfather said, yes, but you have to employ managers and all to look after your limestone trade. And you have to pay them thousands of rupees. But for me, my sons are working there, and they live very simple life. The food also very simple. But then he did like that. And then ultimately, one day my grandfather told my grandmother, he said, oh, now I think I won't be able to stand anymore against him. He said, next time he comes, I think I'll have to surrender to him. And then after 3 days, this great earthquake came. So when the great earthquake came, all the quarries of the English were blocked. The boats couldn't ply anymore. Only the one from my grandfather's was open. And so the price went up. Many, many times went up. I think it went up to 240, something like that per ton. And then he was able to repay all his loans, and then he rebuilt all the houses here. And then this house also was built then after the earthquake in 1897, after the earthquake. But it was very quickly constructed, because my grandmother doesn't want to stay anywhere else. And so this house now is 102 years old. So I was born here.
And you also studied in Shillong?
Yes, I studied in Shillong. I studied in a Bengali school because we had some landed property in Sylhet district. And then my uncle said that, yes, I was educated in Bengali school, very good school, the Jilid school was very good. Because my uncles feel that someone should know Bengali, because in those days all the documents in Sylhet district were written in Bengali. And they felt that at least one should learn Bengali. So I went to Bengali school. Medium was Bengali up to metric. And then I took Bengali also in intermediate. But after in BA, of course, I didn't take. I found it very difficult, a very difficult subject.
Intermediate also you studied in Sylhet?
In Shillong.
In Shillong?
In Shillong.
In Shillong. And school also, Bengali school in Shillong?
In Shillong. And that was the Bengali government school in Jail Road. It was only up to class 6. And then later they started this Lejikin High School. And so by the time I passed my matric, they have already started Lejikin College. Then I went to Lejikin College.
And after that, what did you do?
Lots of things.
Tell us about them.
You see, I was very much inclined for social work. So I was very much involved in social work. But then later, after we got independence, Senghasi wanted to upgrade the school. Senghasi school was actually started in 1921. But it is the only school started by the Khasi, indigenous Khasi. But they didn't get much, they were not very much favored by the government, because the one who was headmaster at the time, a secretary, Raj Mohan Roy, he was also the secretary of Sankhasi, didn't want to introduce the books written by the missionaries because they were more or less inclined to proselytize the children. And so whoever goes to school, went to school at that time, automatically they became converted because they want them to be converted also. And so he didn't want to introduce all these books. Because of that, no grant was given to the Sankhasi. And then, so they started the school, and then the Khasi, I mean those who are not converted, indigenous Khasis, were very much, should I say, they are very much national minded, you know. And so they are very much national minded, and then they always think that we have to get all these, the independence, because we are very much suppressed. Those are not converts, quite suppressed, even now also quite suppressed. And so when they started, and then after independence, they felt that maybe the national government will be more favorable, and so they wanted to upgrade the school. When they thought of upgrading the school, and then Raj Mohan Roy, then at the time also was very old, he was about 90 years old, eh? And so he also felt that he will not be any longer look after the school, and so they forced me to take over the school, though I was not very inclined towards education. And when they had been pressing too much, then I accepted. Then I was very much involved in the school, and then and I had very good cooperation from all the teachers, the secretaries, and the managing committee also cooperate. I got very good cooperation from everyone. And then slowly we have been able to upgrade it up to high school. I took it over as a primary school, and then in 10 years' time it became a high school, and then in 1967 it became a higher secondary school, and it was the only higher secondary school in Khasi Hills. And the government started one in Tura and one in Jowai. And so I was very much involved, but in spite of that also I could make time to do all my social work. And then I was a member of this, what they call the project implementing committee, what do you call it, in the rural areas. That is in 50, I think it started by Mrs. Deshmukh in the 50s, and I was secretary of the project implementing committee. And then later I became a member of the state board, social welfare state board. I was in charge of Khasi Janja Hills, and I used to walk to a great deal. And in those days, of course, there were no roads. I had to walk miles anytime I went to go to these centers. I had to walk on foot, go downhill, uphill. My legs used to ache like anything. And then when we got in Meghalaya, I was the vice chairman of the board here, but unfortunately I got inflicted after the anti-rabies injection, so I can't do any more of the social work and all. I became paralyzed, completely paralyzed, and now of course I could walk a bit with my crutches.
So how do you spend your time now?
Now I'm very busy. I still do social work sitting. I'm still member of so many things. And now I am member of this, they make me member of the Mary Rice Center for the Disabled also. And then advisor of this locality, all these women's organizations. and then I'm running a school here, and then involved with Sankasi, with all these cultural thing and all. And Sankasi also, my grandfather also was very much involved in Sankasi because he was a spirit behind it. Because he always wanted the culture also to remain. Because he doesn't want, because he had seen that it's eroding like that. And so when they started the Sankasi, he was very much behind. And then when any one of these Britisher comes also here as commissioner and all, he used to receive them with this dance, Khasi dance and all like that. But it was not very much appreciated by those who have become converted, because they thought that it is all these backward people's things and all, no? So they always think that they are backward, should not be shown to them. But my grandfather was very much like that. And because of Sankasi, our culture, our dances, our this Khasi music and all, have been able to survive out till now. You see, otherwise they would have all vanished long time ago. And then I'm very much involved now also with the women's branch of the Sankasi. And then I do this writing. I'm still very busy. I've got no time in spite of everything.
And
You received the Padma Shri.
Yes, I got Padma Shri in 74. 74 for social work.
I was seeing it. It's you were telling us that the partition changed the look of Shillong. Can you tell us a little more about that, like pre-partition and post-partition, how Shillong has changed?
Yes, because before the partition, after the partition, most of those government employees who belonged to Sylhet district settled down here. Because they couldn't go, because most of them were Hindus. There were Muslims also, but very few, but most were Hindus. So they couldn't go back. It was not safe for them to go back, so they settled down here. And I think that also added to the increase in population, because if you go to Maupuram side, before partition, it was no houses. And then you go to all the other areas, also no houses. And then all the trade also was not through Shillong in those pre-partition days. The trade was through Sylhet. See, all these border areas, whatever they produce, it goes straight through those streams by boat. It goes to Calcutta and other places. Now in Calcutta also in those days, the oranges were known as Chatok oranges. But actually they are the Khasi oranges, they are the Mizo oranges from here. And the oranges from here also, they go by boat to you have got all the markets in the border areas, and from there they are loaded in the boat and they go to Chatok, and from Chatok by steamer they take them to Calcutta and other parts of our country. And so now the trade there is blocked now, they cannot do, and so most of the things come through Shillong. And then all the food also, like the rice, everything also come to Shillong. From Shillong it goes to the border areas. So the trading in Shillong also had increased. But in those days there were not much trading here. The trading center was Guwahati. And then the people in all these areas, right from where? All these areas from, say from Cherrapunji, downwards in all the border areas, they get the rice also from the Sylhet district. They buy the rice, they buy everything from there. They did not come to Shillong for anything. The clothes, everything also they get from the border itself. And so after partition, that is why I think the business in Shillong also had increased after partition. And then before partition also it was a seed of education. And so all the good schools were here. And of course colleges were very few. we had colleges only Lady King College for the girls, for the women. Lady King College was the first to be started, and then St. Mary's next, and then we had only St. Edmunds, and St. Anthony, I think. That's all, and then all the colleges were in Guwahati and Sylhet. And so from the border areas, people used to go to study in Sylhet and go to college also in Sylhet. And from Shillong, they go either to Guwahati or to Calcutta. But now, and then also, it was not easy to get education in those days because everyone has to pay for their fees and all. And of course, the money also was not so much as it is now because people were poor. They were poor but quite happy. And then you seldom see these, even tin roof also. If you go to the villages, you seldom see in those days. All the houses were of thatch. But now, even in the remote village also you'll see all these concrete building, and then you'll seldom see any thatch houses now if you go to the rural areas also. So, and then now after independence we are getting free education. That means everyone could go to school without any payment, and that also had helped to increase the educated population. And it's good also, that means almost in every house there is no one who does not go to school. But pre-independence days, very few go to school because they cannot afford. If they want to send the children for higher class, for higher school, for higher classes, sometimes they have to take a loan from somewhere to be able to support their children. It was very difficult in those days to get education also. It's not like now that everyone get education, and so almost even in the remote villages also now we have got schools run either by the government, by the district council, or by the missionaries, like that.